Welcome to Not Another Crochet video. Today we'll be doing a tutorial video for these crocheted flowers. What you'll need to make this flower is some kind of stem. I'm using those metal fake flowers wires. You can also use like a wooden rod, or if you wanted to glue these on to like the back of a pin or something, whatever you want for your stem. And then we'll need a green and a pink. Or it doesn't have to be pink, whatever color you want the flower to be. Today we're going to be using this green and pink from Paint Box. And then a crochet hook that matches for your yarn that you got. So if you wanted to make these bigger, you can use one of the thicker yarns. You'll just need to get a bigger crochet hook. So to start, we'll work on the leaves first. The pattern I'll be showing you is this one, where it'll have a little leaf on the side and then the leaves at the bottom. Then I'll show you how to crochet the actual flower, and then last I'll show you the assembly. So let's get started now. So first we're going to make the leaf. So to start, you'll make a slip knot and then chain 8. Now you're going to do one chain to turn, and in the second chain from hook, you're going to make a slip stitch. In the next chain, you're going to make a single crochet. In the next chain, you're going to make a half double crochet. In the next chain, we're going to make a double crochet. And we're going to do that 2 more times with the double crochet. And now in the next chain, we're going to make a half double crochet. And in the last chain, we're going to make a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn our project so we're still working in the chain that we first made. In the same stitch that we made that last single crochet, we're going to go back into that stitch and make another single crochet. I like to work over my tail end of the yarn. You don't have to though. And then in the next chain, we're going to make a half double crochet. So this will be the same stitch that we made our last half double crochet. In the next 3 stitches, we're going to make a double crochet. So you can see the double crochets here. So we're going to do 3 double crochets just like that. In the next stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. And in the last stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. And then to fasten off, I like to make a chain, pull the loop, and then cut the yarn in the middle of this loop. And then you can pull out your yarn and tighten that chain you made. And that is your finished leaf. Next, we're going to make the leaf that goes under the flower. So we're going to start with a slip stitch. And you can either do a magic ring or the chain 2 method. I like to do the chain 2 method, so that's what I'm going to do. So for the chain 2 method, you chain 2 and then work all of your stitches into that first chain you made. So we're going to do 6 single crochet into this chain. And now what you're going to do is do a slip stitch into that first single crochet. If you want, you can count backwards, so you can see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this was the first single crochet we made. So I'm going to insert my hook and do a slip stitch. And now we're going to chain 3. And we're going to do a double crochet into that same stitch that we made that slip stitch in. And then to make the leaf pointed, I like to do a picot. So I chain 1, and then you can see these 2 loops right here on the top of that double crochet, and we'll do a slip stitch in there. Next, we're going to do another double crochet into this same stitch that we made the last double crochet. Then we are going to chain 3 and do a slip stitch into that same stitch. And that is the first leaf, and we're going to do this a total of 6 times. So I'll show you how to do it one last time, and then I'll skip the last 4. So in the next stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch, chain 3, a double crochet, a picot, which is chain 1, and then slip on that stitch on the top of the double crochet, another double crochet, chain 3, and then a slip stitch in that same stitch. So all of those were done in the same single crochet. Now we just do that 4 more times. Alright, I have done the last leaf here, so I just need to do the slip stitch in the same single crochet, and then to fasten off I do the same thing where I make an extra chain. I pull my loop, and then I just snip this loop in the middle and pull the end out and then tighten it. So that is the other leaf. Now I will not pull my string to make this circle tight because we'll need to put this into our stem later. So I like to leave that a little open. You can see how you can see my finger through the center. So we will leave that as is for now and just put it to the side. And next we need to make the actual flower. So to make the flower, you can either do 2 chain method or the magic ring, whichever you're most comfortable with. I'm going to do the chain 2 method again. So first we're going to start with the slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 2. And then in that first chain we made, we're going to do 6 single crochet. Now that we have our 6 single crochet done, what we're going to do is do a single crochet into that first stitch we made. So I like to count backwards just to make sure I'm not skipping any. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in this stitch, I'm going to make a single crochet. Then I'm going to chain 3. And I'm going to skip 1 stitch. So the stitch right next to the one we just went into, I'm going to skip it, and into the next stitch, I'm going to do another single crochet. Then chain 3. Same thing, I'm going to skip the next stitch, and then into the next one, we're going to do a single crochet and chain 3. Now into the single crochet that we made first on this row, I'm going to do a slip stitch. So we're going to skip that last stitch on the first row, and then into that first single crochet we made, I'm going to do a slip stitch. So you should end up with this that has 1 row of 6 single crochet, and then the second row should have 3 loops on it. So into this first loop, into this chain, we're going to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a half double crochet, and a single crochet. And all of these stitches were worked in that space made by the chain. So we're not inserting our hook into an actual stitch, but this hole that the chains make. So before we make our next petal, I like to do a slip stitch into that single crochet that we made. And then we'll insert our hook into this chain loop and do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a half double crochet, a single crochet, and then a slip stitch into that actual single crochet. That's 2 petals done. Now we just have this last loop to make another petal. So same thing, single crochet, half double crochet, 2 double crochets, half double crochet, and a single crochet. Now for the next row, what we're going to do after we made that single crochet is we're going to make a chain, and then we're going to end up folding these petals forward. But first, in the back post of that single crochet we made when we made these chain loops, we're going to insert our hook and do a back post single crochet. So if you saw how I did that, I did the chain and then I inserted my hook backwards through this loop, through this chain loop, and exited through the second chain loop so that single crochet is there. And then we're going to do a single crochet around that. So we're going to pull our yarn all the way through and then finish the single crochet. So that made 1 single crochet. Now to not lose my space, I usually will put a stitch marker into that stitch so that I know where it's at. Then we're going to chain 3. And then into the single crochet that we skipped on row 1, we're going to do a single crochet. So you can see it if you fold your petal forward, you can see the loops right there. So we're just going to insert our hook and do a single crochet. Then we're going to chain 3 again. After that chain 3, we're going to do another back post single crochet around this one here. So as you can see, I did the same thing as last time. I inserted my hook in this chain space and then exited my hook into that second chain space. And then we're just going to do a single crochet back post. Then do another chain 3. And then we're going to do another single crochet into this stitch that we skipped back in row 1. So to see that stitch better, I just move the petal forward so I can actually see the stitch. Then do another chain 3. And then this will be our last back post single crochet for this row. Chain 3. And then 1 more single crochet in that stitch that we missed. And then chain 3 again. And then into that stitch where we put our stitch marker, we're just going to do a slip stitch. So I'm going to remove this stitch marker and do a slip stitch. So this is how it should look now. You should have the 3 petals and 6 loops in total. Now for the next petal, we're going to work into this chain space right next to our hook. I will show you how to make petals that have a little point to them. If you want petals that are rounded like this, then you just won't do the picot stitch that I will show you. So first we're going to do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a picot stitch, which is the same as what we did on our leaves over here. So we're going to chain 1 and then do a slip stitch on the top of that last double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 more double crochets, a half double crochet, and last is a single crochet. Now with our last petals, I did a slip stitch into that single crochet. I don't do that for these last 2 rows of petals just because I like it on the first row because it gives these smaller petals a little more definition, but I don't think it's necessary for the next 2 rows. So that is our first finished petal. We're going to do that 5 more times in these other chain spaces. So I'll show you one more time how to do it on the next chain space, and then I'll meet back with you at the end of the row. So for the next petal, we're going to insert our hook into that chain space, do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, a picot stitch, so chain 1 and do a slip stitch on the top of that double crochet, then 2 more double crochets, a half double crochet, a single crochet, and that is the second petal done. So now just do that 4 more times into each chain space, and I'll meet you at the last petal. Alright, I am on the last petal of this row, so I just need to make the single crochet. And now to do the next row, we're going to be working on the back post single crochets again. So I start with a chain 1, and then folding my petals forward, I'm going to insert my hook back here so that we got that back post of the single crochet, and we're going to do 1 single crochet. Now we're going to chain 4. We're going to do another back post single crochet, so inserting our hook back here and exiting on this side and doing a single crochet and another chain 4. I forgot to put our stitch marker back on that first single crochet we made. Luckily I'm not too far so you can still see it right there. So I'm just going to put my stitch marker in there now so I don't lose it. Okay, so we did our chain 4, so let's go ahead and do another back post single crochet, just right there, another chain 4, and then 1 more back post single crochet, chain 4, another back post single crochet, chain 4, and 1 more back post single crochet, chain 4. And now that we have made it all the way around, we're going to do a slip stitch into that first single crochet that we made. So I'll go ahead, remove our stitch marker, and do a slip stitch. So this is what our flower should be looking like. We should have 6 larger petals and 3 small petals, and then 6 loops in the back. Now for the last row of petals, I like to make these ones a little bit bigger. So into that next chain space we have, we're going to work a single crochet, a half double crochet, 3 double crochets, and then a picot, so a chain 1, slip stitch onto the top of that last double crochet, there's the picot, and then 3 double crochets, a half double crochet, and a single crochet. That is our first petal done, and you can see it's a little bit bigger than all of our previous petals. So now we just need to do that 5 more times. I'll show you one more time and then meet up with you at the end. So the next petal will be into this next chain space. We'll do a single crochet, a half double crochet, 3 double crochets, a picot stitch, 3 double crochets, a half double crochet, and a single crochet. That is our second petal done, and now you'll just need to do that 4 more times, and I will meet you on the last stitch of the last petal. Alright, I am on the last stitch of the last petal, so we're just going to do a single crochet here. And then to not have this weird bump here, I like to do a slip stitch only on this one into the stitch from the petal before, and then chain 1, pull my loop, cut that there, and fasten off. And that is our finished flower. And I do kind of like to fluff the petals up a little bit to make them look a little bit nicer, but that is the flower finished. You can tighten this magic ring or chain 2 once you're done. Just kind of pull that tight and it'll close up there. So that is the flower finish. So now we need to work on assembly. Now I did realize I forgot 2 things you'll need for this flower. You'll need some kind of pliers and some kind of glue. I prefer hot glue. There's also like fabric hot glue. You can also use something like E6000. That'll also work very well. But you'll just need something like that for the assembly of this flower. So first thing we're going to do is, if you're using the flower wire, I like to bend it a little off from center so that there's a taller one and a shorter one. And then here at the end, take our pliers and squish it so that it is together nicely. And once it's together, I'll pinch this end and just twist these around each other till the shorter one of our stems is about double the length of our leaf. So I'll probably twist it just a couple more times, just like that. So you should have a funky Y. And then the tip of our longer stem, I like to use needle nose for this, just because they're a little bit smaller, but I'll pinch the very tip of this and wrap it around so that it kind of looks like this. And then what I'll do is I'll pinch this here and bend it at like a 90-degree angle-ish. So that way our flower has a little bit more surface area to be glued to. So that's how that should look right now. And we can set this aside. The first thing I'll glue is the flower. So you don't have to glue this part. You can weave in the ends if you want. I think gluing it is just significantly easier. Now, if you are using a hot glue gun, be careful not to burn yourself. So what we'll do is right at where this string ends, we'll put a little line of glue going from the end all the way to the center. And then we'll take our strand of yarn and pull it on top of it. So now both of our strands of yarn should look like they're coming out of the center. And what I'll do here is kind of do a little bit of a zigzag in the very center and just place the yarn going in a zigzag on top of that glue. It doesn't have to be the full strand of yarn, but just a couple times bending it should be good enough. And then what you can do with this excess yarn is just trim it off. So it might be a little messy. If you want to wait till the glue has fully dried, you can pick some of these loose strands of glue off. But the very center doesn't matter because that's going to be hidden by this leaf center. So now that we've glued those strands down, we can set that to the side. And the next part we will work on is our little leaf. So you can pick whichever direction you like the best. I like to have this side where you can see the top of the stitches facing towards me. And then the stem where we did not fold it, what we'll do is we'll just kind of weave this in and out through the very center of our leaf. And you'll want to do that all the way to the top. And then just scoot the leaf down. You can put it at the very bottom or up a little bit, wherever you want it to be. I'm thinking I'll do mine like right here. And then at the very top of this leaf, where we have the extra stem sticking out, we're going to take our pliers and bend this down. And then use your pliers to squish that top part so that it's like that. Now, if you'll remember when we made the leaf, we crocheted over the tail of our yarn. So both of our ends are down here at the bottom, which is perfect. So, and if you didn't do that, what you'll do is you'll just take the yarn from the top and fold it over onto the glue. But since both of ours are in the same spot, it just makes it a little bit easier. So what we'll do is we'll take our glue and put it right on top of where this wire is on the leaf. And now this part, you'll need to be careful not to burn yourself, but we're just going to take these two strings and fold them over. This will help keep the leaf stuck to the wire, and it also kind of makes the leaf look like it's got that center vein that most leaves will have. So now you'll have this extra string at the top, and you can just cut that off because it's not going to go anywhere now that it is glued down. And then same thing with the extra glue strands, you can pull those off once it's fully dried. And now for the last leaf. So you'll see how one side of the leaf doesn't have very much detail, and then the other side will have more detail where you can actually see the stitching on the top. We want those stitches to be facing down. So the more muted looking side will be facing up. So what we're going to do is take this little swirl on our wire and put it through the center of this leaf. So it looks like that. And now that it is in the center, we can take the tail end of the yarn for the magic ring part or the chain 2, and we're going to pull it so that it tightens up around that wire, and so the hole's not so big. If you're not able to get it super tight, it's not that big of an issue because we're just going to be gluing this down anyways. And then you're going to want to find the end of the other end of the yarn, and you'll see it's right here at the bottom of this leaf. We're going to take our hot glue and put a little bit at that end and then bring it over on top of the wire. And then we can fold this end of yarn over onto the hot glue, and same with that center. And you'll want to fold this over on top of the glue and on top of the spiral of the wire itself. Now be careful that the glue doesn't seep through the bottom and burn your fingers, so just be mindful of where that glue is at. And I like to do this one a little bit heavy on the glue. That way I just know it's a little more secure because this part's going to also hold the flower itself. But we'll do that. And it doesn't matter too much how this looks because it's going to be covered by the flower. So now that that's all done, we'll take the last 2 strands of yarn and just cut those off. And now what we'll do is we'll take, this is our last part of putting it together. We'll take some hot glue and put it kind of like an X over all of the leaves. So it'll kind of look like a little snowflake. And then we're just going to pop our flower on top. Now I like to hold the 3 center petals so I don't burn myself. And then just stick that right in the center. And then you can turn this upside down and kind of push the petals up against the flower. Now if you're using hot glue like I am, it won't take very long for this to dry. So you can just leave it upside down. Should stand on its own. And just let it sit there for a minute or two, and then you can come back and it should be done. Alright, it has been a couple of minutes and it is fully dry, so it's not fallen off or anything. And then I did just go through and pick off all of the little dried glue that's still left on the flower and on my fingers. But that is how the finished flower looks. And you can also bend the flower if you want it to face a certain way. I really like to use the wire, the floral wire, instead of like a wooden stick because you get to add this leaf. I'm sure you could glue this on to like a wooden stick or whatever, but it's also posable, so you can move it however you want to. So let me know down in the comments what y'all think of this tutorial for this flower. I think this is a great flower to make for Valentine's Day since it's just around the corner, and it really doesn't take too long from start to finish to make. I think it took me a total of an hour, and that's including the filming. So, you know, I had to set up and make sure everything was going for that. So I definitely think it's a great last-minute crochet project for Valentine's Day, or even just as a gift in general. Everyone that I've given these flowers to really seems to like them, and it's great because you can make different ones for different colors, for different parts of the season, and stuff like that, and they're easy to store. You don't have to worry about them getting squished or anything because you can just bend them back into place. So let me know in the comments below what y'all think about this tutorial video and if there's any other tutorials you would like to see me do.